Happy Lesbian Month. Happy Gay Girls Club. Happy Gay Girls Club. Happy LGBTQ RSTUVWXYZ. Uh-oh, they're coming. Uh-oh. They look strong. They look strong.
They look strong. Okay, guys. Rob and I debated not doing a funny video intro tonight because this is kind of a serious topic we're going to discuss tonight. And I'm like, I don't know. There's going to be probably a lot of people from Steubenville watching this. Like, you never know if Scott Hahn's going to check out the show when we started with.
Should try to put our best foot forward. And then we went with that instead.
Went with that one instead. Nick is joining us, but the thing with Nick is when you have a guy like Nick who's so like he's a legitimate choir boy, like he's a choir boy. He's actually at choir practice. I'm not saying that like he's a goody two shoes. He is a goody two shoes. He's a legit choir boy and he's at choir practice, so he'll be here soon.
You're just jealous because you've smoked way too many cigarettes in your life to ever sing.
I could maybe do like a
Johnny Cash, maybe.
Do like a Bob Dylan like spoken language thing. I don't think I could ever sing
spoken language.
Do like I'm not even gonna attempt it. Well,
this is starting off great.
Yeah, this is off to a so I'm like, all right, should we go in without doing a stupid video first? Because I'm like, you know what? It might be new people checking it out. We kind of want them to see our show is a little goofy, but real quick promos. We got go to our shop. We have you accepted Mary as your personal mother and intercessor? We have other merch. You guys peek through it if you want just a typical Avoiding Babylon shirt. We got a bunch of stuff in there if you guys want to help support the show. We're going to do something cool on locals tonight, except our local stream is not working, so we might have to start a new stream for locals.
I'm setting up a new stream that will start at 8:00 Central, right. So 9 Eastern.
So we'll have to actually just go to a new show. Like if you're on locals, you'll have to jump over there. We're gonna do some.
No one's on locals because it's not streaming right now.
Well, now I'm saying, but our local supporters, we'll start a whole new stream. Like it's not just gonna seamlessly go in. We'll have to start a new stream for locals.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to join Patrick Coffin and I in December, we are going to Italy, doing Advent in Italy this year. Go to my Twitter. I have all the info right there if you guys want to check that out. But I think we should just kind of jump into this story, which is a very strange story. And there's so many layers to this thing. This is not just so the way the secular press reported it, how they're going to cover it. They're going to try and make it sound creepy.
For clicks. Kind of
like
what we did.
So wait, let me pull up the actual story. Did I send it to?
Yeah, it's in the WhatsApp. I'm just working on setting up the locals for 9:00, so you keep going.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find it real quick. Okay, here we go. So amid unusual and ongoing court battle, 2 priests in Steubenville, Ohio seek custody of a 2-year-old. So you hear priests and 2-year-old in custody, like your alarm bells go off. But as you go through this story, I mean, look, they're very vague in the way they report it, but I'm gonna go out on a limb, maybe. And the thing is, Rob and I both discussed it, and I think we kind of both have the same take on it. So, priests alleged in 2022 complaint that the mother has very little interaction with the child, and
maybe wait till I can bring it up.
Okay, yeah.
Just give me a second.
Give Rob a second. Set some things up. Yeah, and okay, so wait, I'll go into Grover over here. Let's see. Grover wants a refund. Rob, is there a way to double the price for Grover to be on locals?
No, but what I can do is we can not refund him and I can just cut his access.
This punk. And I don't consider this church drama either. So when I say I don't want to discuss church drama, I'm talking about like Francis and stuff. Like I don't really care to talk about Francis much. I think we're ending we're coming to the end of that era, and it's kind of like, look, let's just let that thing play out, and we'll see where we go from there. So that's kind of what I mean by church drama. But like big stories and things that come up, we're going to discuss. This story I just thought was a really interesting story, and I think if this took place at a different time in history, that we'd all be reacting to it differently. So priests allege in 2022 complaint that the mother has very little interaction with the child and that taking custody would be in the child's best interest. So Steubenville, Ohio, Jordan and Edgar Pauli's apartment is reminiscent of the homes of many young and financially challenged parents. Amid the day-to-day household clutter are baby formula, diapers, and a spectrum of brightly colored plastic toys for their rosy-cheeked 1-year-old daughter. In June, Miss Pauli, 23, and her 26-year-old husband celebrated the birth of a second daughter. A piece of the Steubenville family has been missing for over a year now. A 2-year-old boy who is in temporary custody of 2 priests in a nearby St. Peter Catholic Church in the midst of an unusual and ongoing court battle for custodial rights. Now, right off the bat, Rob, you and I went to this church.
Yeah, we've been to that parish. That was the parish we.
Is that where we went to adoration?
That's that. Yeah, they had perpetual adoration. Okay. And
this is a good parish. It's not like I'm pretty sure they say both forms of the mass.
They do, and one of the priests involved here has been instrumental in keeping the TLM alive in Steubenville. Okay,
so I feel like this is a very wrong thing for Catholics to do, Miss Pauli said. I've never seen 2 people in the Catholic community want someone.
Hold on. You skipped.
I skipped over?
Yeah.
Oh.
Start with the piece of the Steubenville.
The case which began after the police.
Nope. You skipped again. A piece of the Steubenville family has been missing.
I read that.
Oh, okay.
I read that.
Sorry.
Welcome to the professionalism of avoiding Babylon, guys. Okay. The case, which began after the police sought assistance from the church to care for their son, has had a profound impact on all sides involved. I feel like this is a very wrong thing for Catholics to do, Miss Pauli said. I've never seen 2 people in the Catholic community want someone's child that bad. They've torn my family apart. For their part, the priest, Father Timothy Huffman, and the pastor of St. Peter, and Father Bradley Greer, chancellor at the Steubenville Diocese and vicar at St. Peter, claimed in court when filing for custody in December 2022 that it was in the best interest of the child to stay with them. The Post-Gazette is not identifying him by name for privacy considerations. The situation has captured the attention of experts on Catholic Church tradition who told the Post-Gazette they have never come across or even heard of a case like this. Meanwhile, the case has dragged on for more than 18 months. Allegations made by Father Huffman and Father Greer in their court filings include claims that the couple watered down the baby's formula and fed him cantaloupe and chocolate. And that Miss Pauli has referred to the child as a little bastard and the spawn of Satan. In court records, the priest also said they had spent at least $1,400 at Walmart and Walgreens on groceries and other items for the couple, and said the child was in the rectory under their care an average of 4 to 5 nights a week between the end of July and November of 2022. The mother has very little interaction with the children when she is around him, and the child is lethargic around the mother. However, the child is very happy and active while in our care. The priest also alleged the child displayed poor hygiene when the police dropped him off with them. A judge granted temporary custody to the priest about 2 weeks later, specifying the child would live in the church rectory during the duration of the case. So this is an interesting. All right. So some of the things that you hear the mother saying about the child, and the fact that the court granted temporary custody to these priests, and the child is living in the rectory, should right off the bat make you think like, what's going on? It's a very tricky situation. Is that my Anthony Soprano's impression? It's I think if this took,
we're actually going to discuss this as well.
This is okay. So that's where this is going.
The comment says there was a famous incident under Pius IX where a Jewish child was taken by Catholics and raised Catholic, and Pius IX allowed it. We're
Okay,
actually going to discuss that.
Yeah, that's this story will lead into that story. So the story with Pius IX is there was a nurse who baptized the child, and Pius IX refused to give that child back to his Jewish parents. Okay, which it's a really interesting story. And Father Nix is the one who sent me that story. He's like, this kind of reminds me a little bit of this. So I think if this situation took place 50 years ago, I don't think this would be so controversial. Now, I'm going to say this. It's a bad look, right? Like, it's a bad look. Especially post priest scandal. Like, these priests should be lining up a family to take this child, or there should be foster care for this child. It shouldn't be.
Well, I don't think they should go into the foster system. I don't think it.
Yeah, that's awful too, right? The children going into the foster system. Now,
it does sound like from an outside source that the priests were trying to line up a family, but there wasn't a family in the parish that stepped up.
Okay, now the other weird aspect of this is that somebody leaked this story to the press, right? So there's a situation going on in Steubenville where some people are unhappy about it. Now, other people are saying things like, this woman is a known drug user. I don't know. I can't, I don't know if that is actually true. We have to be very careful how we say that. I don't know. There's rumors going around.
Allegedly.
Alleged rumors. I don't know this woman. I don't know the family at all. It just reading, even from the secular press, though, and they're trying to make it look like there's shenanigans going on and this is awful that priests would do this. It still kind of sounds to me like the priests are like kind of have the child's best interest at heart.
I think
hearing that the way that she speaks to the child, I'm going to tell you right now, I work in the city and I've seen the way low income families speak to their children. And it's kind of a vicious cycle where you'll see the way certain mothers specifically will speak to their children, and you'll actually say, that kid has no chance. Like, that kid has no chance. And it's this vicious cycle. They're abused growing up. They grow up. They get in trouble with the law. They themselves become abusers. And it's just this cycle that goes around and around. I don't know if that's definitely the case in this situation. I just think, I mean, feeding chocolate and cantaloupe doesn't sound too bad to me. I mean,
it was weird that like those were singled out.
Yeah, because I used to give my kids ice cream and stuff growing, especially a 2-year-old. You want daddy gives them something, a nice little treat. So, all right, let's keep going.
I say there's a lot more details here. So
yeah, so the judge granted temporary custody to the priest about 2 weeks later, so the child's allowed to stay in the rectory. It's been more than a year and a half since the drama continues to play out in court. Father Huffman and Father Greer and the Diocese of Steubenville, which hugs the Ohio border and has 50 parishes and 33 active priests, according to its website, declined to comment on the case. Now, that's the other aspect of this story. So we're going to get into something with the bishop now. Now, they are trying to merge the Steubenville Diocese with the neighboring diocese right now. Now, from what I know of the Steubenville Diocese, the people in Steubenville do not want that merger to take place. Like, I don't think anybody's thrilled about it. So, since April, the Post-Gazette made repeated attempts in person, via emails, and by phone to get comments from both the fathers and their attorney, all of which were declined. Neither the Steubenville Police nor the Jefferson County Department of Job and Family Services has substantiated any of the claims made in the priest's legal filings, according to court documents. Instead, the Jefferson County Department of Job and Family Services, which administers children's services in the area, cleared the couple of having safety threats in their home and even lauded the couple as having many strengths in a letter from the agency dated November 2023. The child has not been returned to the Paulies due to the ongoing court case. The couple, who say they cannot afford an attorney, have represented themselves in court and said they plan to keep fighting for custody of the boy in what they claim is a case of religious leadership overstepping when they should have been helping. It's disgusting what they've done, Miss Pauly said. It's a disgrace to the Bible. It's a disgrace that the bishop or anyone else would accept this. Nobody warned us about these guys. So right off the bat, it's another weird situation where it doesn't sound like she's Catholic, right? It sounds like sounds like she was a very young mother. I mean, she was 21 when she had the baby. And maybe the priest just kind of stepped up at first. Let's go through a little bit more here, actually.
There's a lot more detail.
Yeah. The Pauleys, looking back, believe they lost custody because they decided to lean on a community they didn't know for help when they were new in town. We knew no one. In June 2022, the Pauleys moved to Steubenville from Wilkes-Barre, PA, and moved in with the biological mother of Jordan Pauley. Miss Pauley, who was adopted, said she wanted to start fresh with her husband amid a turbulent relationship with her family. Weeks later, the couple was kicked out of the home after what they described as an altercation with Miss Pauley's mother. They briefly became homeless. They soon signed a lease for a Jefferson County Metro Housing Authority apartment a few blocks from the St. Peter's Catholic Church. The couple began frequenting the nearby Friendship Home, a nonprofit that assists low-income and homeless families. The Friendship Room, run by St. Peter's parishioner Molly McGovern, is where the Pauleys met Father Huffman and Greer, who began helping the couple with money and baby formula and babysitting the boy. Like right off the bat, this is a woman struggling with money, and the priests go out of their way to help this struggling mother who can't afford to feed her child, it seems. Right.
Yeah.
So that's how it starts off. And by babysitting the boy, things kind of seemed like they were going well, Miss Pauley said. It seemed like they were nice and helpful. Miss McGovern did not respond to requests for comment. In an affidavit filed along with the request for custody, Father Huffman and Greer said that Miss McGovern invited them to help the couple with the child. Over the summer and fall months of 2022, records show the priests allowed the child to stay in the rectory frequently. They also called Michelle Stanton, Jefferson County Department of Job and Social Families Director, and now retired Steubenville Police Detective Jonathan Sowers to discuss the situation, but expressed their frustration in the resulting conversations, according to the court filing. We called Michelle Stanton from Child Protective Services about the situation. We were told to call an emergency number. We had lots of conversations with the caseworker. Needless to say, CSB was of no help to us or the child. Ms. Stanton declined to comment on the case. Text messages between Father Greer and Ms. Stanton that the Pauleys obtained within the litigation paint a tumultuous picture of the months leading up to the filing in the court case in the custody case. In one text, Father Greer expressed his disbelief that the couple left the child in his care while they went for a swim. So they're just dumping the kid off at the parish whenever they want to go and do stuff.
It does seem that way.
Seems like they're just
according to this story.
Seems like they want to go, oh, we're going to go swimming. Let's just leave the baby here at the rectory. And they're leaving these two priests with the baby. And it's like, what is going on here? So it seems like the priests just are like, what is going on with this child? And they are just looking out for the look. I don't know the priests. I don't know. I'm reading a secular news story, which is trying to paint the priests as these bad guys trying to steal a baby. And it just doesn't seem like that's what's going on. It just seems like there's way more to this than all right. So I'm completely incredulous, Father Greer texted. Days later, a nurse, the priest enlisted to look after the boy, called child services to report the couple text show. Father Greer also told Miss Stanton that he feared the Pauleys would take the boy back, the text show, although at the time the priest did not have legal custody. They don't usually have a car, but Miss Pauley has a truck from work at the moment, Father Greer wrote ahead of the child services. We're concerned that they might try to take the baby and run. And text message, I mean, the thing is, it is their baby.
Yeah. Clearly the priest had concerns, though. Not just the priest, a nurse, that they asked to come help, obviously had concerns too.
It's a bad look for the priest, man. It's not a good look. I understand. I'm just trying to have I'm trying to show empathy to all sides, and I'm trying to view this in the best possible light. And I really do think the priests have the child's best interest at heart, right?
I think this comment, so Mary Ann says, it is completely inappropriate for this child to be living with these priests. It is against their vows and their mission. That child should never have been allowed to stay in the rectory. I would say, number one, it's not against their vows. And number two, I think throughout the history of the church, there's many instances of priests raising, priest or religious orders raising children and orphans. And
John
I think
Bosco, right? I mean, the church is. That's why I'm saying, like, we're looking at this post-scandal church, and we're like, this is nefarious, and why do these priests want this baby and this and that? But if you really understand the history of the church always stepped up to care for children in need, right? And it seems like these priests were this situation was thrust upon them.
And I think throughout most of the history of the church, you had an institutional church that the priests could have gone to. There would have been a Catholic orphanage run by nuns to take care of them, or something of that. But that has completely collapsed. I mean, throughout most of the world, that institutional church is gone, and whatever's left of it is still collapsing. And now it doesn't so much to say here in the story, but it sounds like I don't know, like the bishop isn't even necessarily standing up for them. But like I said, it's not very clear on that.
Look, well, okay, so I think there is something going on with the bishop in this situation. Like the bishop was okay. Let's see if I think it said something about that, right?
Yeah, I will keep reading.
In text messages between the nurse and Father Greer, the priest shared information about Miss Pauly, assured the healthcare worker that there was, without a doubt, neglect, and mentioned questions about whether Miss Pauly was actually the mother of the boy, a suspicion attributed to Miss McGovern. She's beginning to wonder if the child's actually Jordan's, Father Greer wrote. On the same day, Father Greer wrote nearly identical text messages to Miss Santon. A month later, the text suggests the priests were at their breaking point. The past month has totally exhausted us, and it seems that the current situation has no end in sight, Father Greer texted Miss Santon. The more we help, the more they want. That's another rough thing, right? The priests are going out of their way to help, and the more they help, these people, it's like you give an inch and they take a mile. Like they just text messages between Father Greer and Miss Pauly, also included in the court record, show that the pair of priests continued their involvement with the Paulys, offering to buy them cigarettes on at least one occasion, inviting them to celebrate Father Hoffman's birthday, and caring for the child. In the months leading up to the complaint they filed seeking custody in December. You both know that if we can help you and if we can help you and you want our help, we will be there, Father Greer texted Miss Pauly. Miss Pauly in an interview offered a different outlook. I felt like they came from a good heart and a good soul. And then when I really got to know them and they started getting really close to me, that's when I started having red flags, because I knew they were only getting close to me to find personal information to pin against me. Then they turned around and called child services on me. So I kind of see her point of view there, right? Like they're getting close to her, they're getting her to open up, and then as she opens up, they're feeding that information to CPS.
This comment here says, why can't the priest have the kids transferred to a qualified agency? And the answer is because they tried through the Child Protective Services, or whatever they call it in Ohio, and they neglected to do anything. So the priest filed a legal motion, and a judge stepped in then.
What's crazy to me is that the judge granted temporary custody to the priests.
Yes.
That doesn't happen.
Seemingly against the recommendations of Child Protective Services. Which
is bizarre to me, because in nearly all scenarios, they side with the biological mother. I have a friend who had a kid with this girl. The mother essentially abandoned the child. And the judge sided with my friend, okay, and granted full custody to my friend. My friend had his son for 9 years. 9 years later, the mother decides she wants to be back in the picture, and she files for shared custody, and the judge gives it to her. Like, they almost always side with the biological mother.
Yeah, it's one thing the red pill movement is like factually correct about. That sort of stuff.
So the thing now, the way I counseled my friend in that situation was, look, I know you can't stand this girl, and I know you're like, this girl has been nowhere near my child's life all this time, and all of a sudden she wants to come in, but you're not punishing her by denying shared custody. You're actually punishing your kid. Like when you're dealing with custody battles, like, you really have to understand that a child who is abandoned by their mother, the damage that does to that child later on. So if the mother is looking to repair the relationship, you should do everything you can to facilitate that, because it's in the best interest of the child, as long as the mother is not abusing the child or doing something damaging to the child. Like if the mother is genuinely trying to just seek to repair the relationship, as much as you have hard feelings towards that person, you're not doing it for her, you're doing it for your child, because you love your child so much. You don't want them to have that abandonment issue later in life. It's a tough situation.
Hold on, where is it here? Trying to find the comment. Oh, weird, it's not showing it. Must have been deleted.
So
okay.
The child services probe took nearly a year to complete. It found no safety threats to Paulie's home, according to the document. In 2023, while Ms. Paulie said some of the claims the priest made were mischaracterizations of her parenting, she said her biggest regret was taking their help. I thought they were okay, she said. I thought they were going to be helpful, and that I was kind of just getting a break here. I was getting a babysitter. Like, the priest should not have been your babysitter, lady. I thought Ms. Paulie said she realizes she wasn't a perfect parent, but doesn't believe she deserved to lose custody of her child. While Ms. Paulie said she could not afford parenting classes, she has said she's been working on becoming a better parent by first improving herself.
Why do you need parenting classes? Like, I don't.
I'll be honest. I'll tell you why. Because, dude, I don't think most people. Now, I don't know the race of the mother. I don't know the race of the family. I have no idea. I can only tell you based on what I've seen in low income situations. A lot of people that grow up in that situation themselves were never parented. They themselves were never raised right. Like they don't, you know what I mean? They don't, dude, you got to understand we live in a different world, man. Like we have,
I know we do,
loving families that are there to support us in times of need and things like that. Like you guys, if you are in a situation like that, you don't understand how lucky you are. There are people who are literally alone in this world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to show some kind of compassion. Like this woman may really have absolutely no idea how to raise a child.
And also, well, I mean, there's no real indication, but she could have also be, especially with the birth of a second child, be struggling with like postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying a parent should lose custody over a child for that, but if maybe the priest saw this and felt that the child was in danger.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and it's hard for CPS to come in.
How often does a mother in postpartum do harm to her child? I mean, it's not that rare, you know?
No, not at all. And CPS can't come in a few times over a year, look at the house and say that the children are safe, you know, from a mother with postpartum depression, whereas the priests who are having to watch the kids 4 or 5 nights a week because the mother just mentally and physically can't handle it, they would have a better idea. And
the priests have an inside track on this, and they're seeing things that CPS isn't seeing by a quick stopping and popping and visit,
right.
You know?
Exactly.
So let's scroll down to the silence from the diocese part. So neither Father Greer, Father Huffman, nor the Steubenville Diocese has made any public statement.
Hold on, just with what I had said, it does say that she was going to work to complete psychiatrics, you know,
psychiatry work.
Yeah. So it seems like it kind of leads to that.
Yeah, that it sounds like the priest kind of knows something here, right? Look, the whole thing is a bad look. And I think even some of the people that go to the parish are not happy with the situation.
Yeah.
And it seems like somebody from the parish who's not happy with the situation may have leaked this to the press. So I was going to say, having grown up in a very low income situation, this all sounds very familiar. Having grown up in a very low income situation, this all sounds very familiar. Yeah, I think she just had you need your husband to correct your grammar there, Mrs. C.
I saw that on Twitter today.
She said on Twitter, I need my husband to be smarter to correct my grammar.
And he came in and corrected her grammar in that tweet. Oh, I loved it.
We need Mr. C to come in and correct your grammar, woman. Yeah, it seems like this is a delicate situation. And I think a lot of this has to do with a lack of leadership in the diocese. I think there's aspects of it where they're trying to merge these dioceses, and there's just a lot going on here. It's not just such a simple thing. And we kind of wanted to cover this story because we thought it was going to get picked up by mainstream press. And we were like, I think that we kind of have to defend the priests a little bit here. Like, yeah. I know it's not a good look, but I mean, if you really do see this situation from a bigger perspective than just seeing it from the post 2002 scandals coming out, right? The spotlight story coming out, because as soon as you hear priests and kids now, unfortunately, that's where our minds go.
And as much of a bad look as it might be, you know, to people who are like uninformed with the stuff, the fact is that hard numbers make it very clear that that child is way safer with those priests than in the foster care system, or than with public school teachers, or than with basically anyone of any other occupation.
A step parent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, statistics will show that the child's safer with priests than just normal parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Joe, the child is staying at the rectory.
He's staying at the rectory, which is strange. But like I said, you're also dealing with where the court,
right? The court gave the priest custody.
Like how often does a court side with the priests over? I mean, not that this happens often, but that they're siding with these priests over the biological mother. There has to be more than just what you're seeing in the court filings, right?
I just had an idea, and I don't. The family was fine with all of this, right? With the priest watching the kid 4 to 5 nights a week, basically raising the child as they are now legally. The family was fine with them doing it without custody. It was when they lost legal custody, which could very well impact any sort of financial assistance.
Yeah.
And I'm not making any accusations. It's just something that hit me.
Now also take this into account, Rob. These priests are essentially raising this child for the past year.
2 years. It's been a year and a half.
It's been going on in court for a year, and for 6 to 8 months before that, the priests were already doing all this heavy lifting. You fall in love with a child. Like you fall in love with a kid. It's like you're watching this baby become a toddler, and I mean it's very difficult to not fall in love with a baby becoming a toddler. It's the cutest age. They're learning to these priests are probably teaching this baby how to talk. You know,
I think so. Joe saying, I think in response to the kid living in the rectory, that's messed up. There are plenty of great Catholic families that could take the child in for the time being. Parishioners could take turns, etc. Right, but all of that sort of stuff takes a lot of legal work, and it takes a lot of time and processing.
You can't just hand a kid off.
Right, exactly. So the priest got a judge to give them temporary custody. That was the only thing they could do that they thought to prevent this family from running off with the kid or something, you know, to where then no one would be able to help.
What's up, fools?
So I think this is more just I think the living situation is more a response to the situation than like this is actually what they want long term.
Nick, did you get a chance to read this story?
Which one? Because I just jumped on. You mean the main one?
I sent it to the thing during the day today. The priests having the custody issue with the kids.
I did, yeah.
Okay,
that's an interesting story to say the least.
So Rob and I are of the opinion that these priests actually have the child's best interest at heart, that the mother is troubled, and that it's a bad look. It's not a great look for priests to be doing this, but I think when it comes down to it, that we really do think the priests have the best interest of the child at heart. Now, they should be trying to work out a family taking the child. Child shouldn't be raised by these priests. It shouldn't be in the rectory. But being that a judge granted them temporary custody and the child's in the rectory, we just think, you know, if you're looking at this story from a longer perspective and you're not just looking at it from the post spotlight church after the scandals came out, if you looked at this 50 years ago, this would not be some crazy story that you'd be hearing about. you would just say, oh, the church is stepping up and these priests are doing the right thing here.
So
Yeah.
Joan is asking, where are the grandparents? The beginning of the article, it sounds like they moved from Pennsylvania to Steubenville because of a falling out with the mother's parents, and they were living with the father's parents, and then had a falling out with the father's parents, and had to get
so think about
government.
that. Like, you're talking about
government
who's
apartment.
dysfunctional, right? Like, you're talking about a set of parents who couldn't get along with the mother's parents, then couldn't get along with the father's parents. And these priests step in to try and help the kid out. And then over time, the parents just start dumping the kid off there. And it's just a very tricky situation. I think that the priests got to figure something out, because people are not happy about it in Steubenville. I think this is kind of, once it hit the mainstream press, people are trying to make it look like there's some weird stuff going on at this parish that has a traditional Latin mass, and I think that's the slant they're going to try and go with this, which is kind of why Rob and I wanted to talk about this, because I wanted to look at it in a charitable light.
Yeah. Basically, whenever I went through the story, I thought the priests are in the right because they have the interests of the child at heart. Like, clearly this is a dysfunctional situation that needs to be taken care of. The issue is, of course, whenever you take this and lay it against the backdrop of all that's happened over the last 20 years in the United States, it reeks of scandal, even if there is no real scandal. That's just the issue.
Yeah.
But that's where, you have to take those Catholic moral principles into it. It's like, okay, well, if this kid is really going to have a really bad time, then you got to do what you got to do. It's rough, though.
Now, we actually thought this was kind of interesting. All right, so let's just at least address the bishop situation. So,
Yeah.
okay, so the priests initially filed their case while Bishop Jeffrey Montfortin presided over the diocese, although he was moved to the Diocese of Detroit in late 2023 amid contentious talks of a merger with the neighboring Diocese of Columbus, as well as 2 Vatican-ordered Vos Estis investigations into his handling of sex abuse cases, Catholic news service The Pillar reported. Change continued to impact the leadership of the diocese when on June 14th, Bishop Paul Bradley was removed as head of the diocese after less than a year at the helm and replaced by Kalamazoo, Michigan, Bishop Edward Lose, according to a letter addressed to the clergy and faithful of the Diocese of Steubenville. Bishop Lose will provide direction and episcopal leadership to the Steubenville Diocese while continuing to serve as the Bishop of Kalamazoo, the letter states. Bishop Bradley did not respond to call-seeking comment. Church experts noted they did not have the expertise in this particular case outside the court documents, and details the Post-Gazette shared, but suggested the diocese would benefit from being more transparent regarding the unusual situation. The Catholic Church globally has been working to regain trust, introducing new policies and new rules meant to restore faith in its people and its practices. This is a bizarre situation, and the lack of transparency is a potential red flag, said Brian Kleitz, a Catholic studies professor. This is a bizarre situation. Transparency is a potential red flag. So Brian Kleitz, a Catholic studies professor at Case Western Reserve University, who focuses on the anthropology of power and trauma within Roman Catholicism. Like, you go to that
Oh
guy
my gosh,
for a
that's a
comment?
university specialty.
You go to a university guy
Unbelievable.
who specializes in trauma and power in the Roman Catholic Church. Come on.
What kind
man.
of major is that, or specialty? That's like the most niche specialty of all time.
Only one that they have at some university you've never heard
It's
of.
basically the gender studies of Roman Catholicism, right? It's the Marxism of Roman Catholicism. Mr. Kleitz, who has studied centuries of Roman Catholic tradition, said he has not yet come across a case that resembles the one playing out in Steubenville. Now, Rob and I kind of have.
I mean, this really isn't uncommon in church history.
This is not that crazy, okay? So
I've never heard of a priest filing for custody. Is that maybe because, like, the whole notion of filing for custody of a child in court is kind of a rather new circumstance in the 2,000 years of church history? Huh?
All right, let's jump to
Too much nuance.
Let's jump to the Pius IX story, and this one's gonna get a little controversial.
Okay. Controversy.
We're gonna go. Okay, was a memoir of a Jewish boy taken by the Pope doctored. Analysis. The story of Edgardo Mortara, who was raised as a Catholic after Pope Blessed Pius IX learned he had been secretly baptized by a nursemaid, has sparked fresh controversy amid reports about a translation. Providence, Rhode Island. The story of Edgardo Mortara. Now, Steven Spielberg made a movie about this.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He also
was
made
it
one
called?
about aliens too. So
I'm just saying, but Steven Spielberg did make a movie about this. The story of Edgardo Mortara, a Jewish boy seized from his family and raised as a Catholic after Pope Pius IX learned he had been secretly baptized by a nursemaid, prompted an immediate outcry in 1858. A century and a half later, the story has sparked a fresh burst of controversy amid reports that a translation of Mortara's memoir, written after he grew up to become a Catholic priest and often expressed gratitude for the Pope's intervention, had been doctored to place Pius's decision in a more sympathetic light. So, this is a Jewish kid who the nursemaid baptizes, and then Pius IX finds out about it and goes, "Give me the kid. I'm not giving him back to the Jewish."
Catholic now. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, but you have to understand, in the 1800s, you couldn't give a Catholic child to someone outside of the faith knowingly. You'd be abandoning that child. And when the world had a more Catholic sensibility, this was not crazy.
No.
You read this with 2024 eyes and you go back on it and you're like, this is, how could the Pope do this? But the church genuinely had an eternal vision of a soul back then. And for you to hand a baptized child back to a Jewish family would be apostasy.
Someone is asking if this was baptism done in danger of death. And the answer is yes. The nursemaid baptized the child because he was seemingly on his deathbed. He did recover, but that is why the nursemaid baptized the child.
Well, let's read the story. A century and a half later, the story has sparked a fresh burst of controversy amid reports that a translation in his memoir, written after he grew up to become a Catholic priest. I read that,
Where are
right?
you now? Yes.
Okay. Father Mortara's complex story is now the subject of an upcoming Steven Spielberg film. And so this is old. So, and a 2017 English language translation of his doctored memoir has renewed debate over the Pope's actions. The 6-year-old son of Jewish parents in Bologna, one of the largest cities in the Papal States, Edgardo was secretly baptized when he was an infant by his 16-year-old nursemaid. Good for her. After he fell ill and doctors feared he would die. When government authorities in Bologna learned what had happened, they followed church law and decreed that he should be educated as a Catholic. So this is in the Papal States on top of that. Right?
Well, so I was going to say, I think one thing people need to be aware of is the historical context of this time. Like 1858, Papal States, you had the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia, which was a very liberal, kind of Masonic influence kingdom.
I freaking love this.
They were heavily working against basically all the other Italian states at the time, because the king of Piedmont, Sardinia had designs to conquer all of Italy, which he ended up doing.
How do you know this?
I learned it in high school.
Did you really?
Yeah.
It was in the part that you dropped out for.
That's exactly what happened.
I had to. It was too easy.
This actually might lead into our Thursday show, but
yeah, little heads up. I won't be here Thursday, so Rob and Nick have a special show planned for you guys, which I'm going to be extremely offended by because it's prejudice against Italians. But go ahead, Rob.
But anyway, so this was 2 years before the real conquering of the Italian peninsula started, and the kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia was lots of propaganda basically. So they would have stoked any disruption any event caused. So if this event caused anger at the time, it was most likely largely influenced by Piedmont, Sardinia.
Okay, so you also have a lot of revolutions going on at this time, right?
Yeah, this was 10 years after the 1848 revolutions throughout all of Europe.
Yeah, and we all know a lot of times there is a certain group of people behind those revolutions.
Yes.
Were they? Yeah, Okay, so Edgardo was sequestered from his family and brought to Rome at Pope Pius IX's direction. Educated by the Order of the Canons Regular, he later entered the order as a 16-year-old novice. Last month, David Kurtzer, the Pulitzer Prize-winning Brown University historian and author of the 97 bestseller, The Kidnapping of Edgardo Mortara, was the first to raise questions about the Italian translation of his autobiography by Vittorio Missori, the Italian Catholic journalist and author of the Reassessing Report and Crossing the Threshold of Hope. Mortara had written his story in Spanish 3 decades after he was removed from his family. The story was subsequently typed up and archived by members of his religious order, the Canons Regular of St. Peter's in Chains in Rome. In reading the Italian text, I found many elements that were historically inaccurate, but I was not sure to what extent those inaccuracies were the work of Mortara himself or had been the result of changes in the Mortara text introduced by Missori, Kurtzer told the Register.
It should be noted that Kurtzer is largely published just only anti-Catholic books. So he has that Kidnapping of Edgardo Mortara in 97. 2001, he wrote The Popes Against the Jews. In 2014, he wrote a book called The Pope and Mussolini. So it looks like
this is essentially like going to that professor of trauma and
it's like when
power and trauma.
It's like when a mainstream media platform is trying to talk about some type of normie right winger, and they go to the SBLC, the Southern Poverty Law, and they're like, "What's your comments on this?"
Exactly. Now this is interesting because I never heard this story before, but I just thought it was so interesting that the world was so Catholic back then, and you're in the papal states, and the Pope says, "No, this kid's baptized. He's one of ours."
I know.
And we don't care if you're the parents. He's ours. Like this child's soul belongs to us now. You don't get to have him.
He wrote the Pope's plot to capture Italy from the new Italian state.
Oh my goodness, this guy's terrible. All right, so everything this guy Kurtzer says is nonsense. So Kurtzer pointed to a 300-word paragraph in the Italian translation that recalled a poignant encounter between Mortara and Dominican Father Gaetano Feletti, the papal state official responsible for removing him from his family. In Missouri's translation, Father Mortara writes in the third person that he holds very dear the memory of this respectable friar, who was one of those who more closely intervened in the spiritual regeneration and rehabilitation of his soul. But in an April 15th article of The Atlantic, Kurtzer noted that this passage never appeared in the original Spanish account. Now, let me just right off the bat. This kid gets baptized. He's then taken in by Catholics. He becomes a priest. Do you think for a second he wouldn't be thanking God that he wasn't raised by his Jewish parents? Like, honestly, like if you're a Catholic, like I don't care who you kidnap me from. If you saved my soul through this, like, I'll go meet my parents and stuff. But like, guys, I lost my parents. I gained eternity. Exactly.
But what just makes me mad about this is that the people who are whining and complaining about this and saying, "Oh, doesn't the kid have rights? Shouldn't the kid have had a choice? Like, shouldn't the kid have stayed with his parents?" are the same individuals who cannot tell you like where objective morality comes from.
Well, they're the same individuals who will take a kid from his parents so they can, medically castrate the child.
Exactly. They could murder the child in the womb. Just don't take him outside and baptize him.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, how is this? Okay, so the case of Pius IX was a case of, no, this child's baptized. We can't allow this child's soul to be lost because this is why people really should never baptize, because you know how you don't need a priest to baptize. Anybody can technically baptize, but like I have a brother whose wife is Protestant, and their kids were dedicated as kids. They weren't baptized. I would never baptize my brother's kids because that would automatically apostatize.
Well, that and it would be illicit. It would still be a valid baptism, but it would definitely be it. I believe it is gravely sinful for the Catholic. Doing it against the wishes.
Just go around baptizing somebody
outside of danger of death.
Correct.
Exactly. There's basically it's like if there's a child who is if it's someone else's child and the parents don't want them to be baptized, you can't go baptize that child except there be some type of grave cause, danger of death.
Like this nursemaid.
Like there's nursemaid, exactly. If it's an adult, right, and let's just say they're just, accident on the highway or something, then you can go up. If the guy wants baptism, yeah, you can baptize him. Pour water over the head. I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. But if the guy, you don't know whether he's baptized, he's unconscious, and there's no signs that he wants to be baptized, you couldn't baptize him then because he'd have to give his own choice.
Is that different for a child below the age of reason?
Yeah, exactly. It would be below because the child under the age of reason, the presupposition is it's the parents or the guardians or whoever authority is in their life. Their faith is going to be the faith that's required for the baptism.
We have Gideon coming on next month.
Oh, cool.
Do we?
Yeah, Gideon will be on next month. He wrote a book. He's promoting a book. So I asked him to come on sooner, but he's not available to. Like I reached out to him. I was like, hey, Gideon, if you want to come on and just chat with us, let me know. He's like, I won't be available until next month. So next month, Gideon will be coming on. I can't wait to talk to him about creationism, and all
the
that
errors
stuff.
of Scotism. Why Scotism?
He's a SCOTUS, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That'll be interesting to have you two talk.
SCOTUS. This is
Yes. Yeah. So it's all right. So let's finish this out. The Associated Press undertook its own comparative study of the Spanish original and the Italian translation and reached a similar conclusion. The alterations do not significantly change the overall thrust of Mortara's oft-stated gratitude to the Saint Pope Pius IX for having saved his soul by removing him from his Jewish family to raise him Catholic, read the report by Nicole Winfield, the AP's Rome correspondent. AP found that anti-Semitic comments contained in the original Spanish had been removed from Missouri translation, including a reference to Mortara having always professed an inexpressible horror.
So they're upset at this translation for removing
the offensive stuff.
Yeah, but removing the stuff that this child ended up believing. Like,
that's what it is.
You need to believe how we think you need to believe.
Yeah, so that's what it is. The child is converted, becomes a priest, and he professes an inexpressible horror towards the people of the Old Covenant. Now, this is likely because of some of the conflicts going on that Rob discussed.
Oh, 1,000%. But then also just the church clearly was teaching correctly on this issue. I mean, what just boggles my mind about this issue is the fact that
is Father Nick's in the chat? Somebody said hi, Father Nick.
Is he? Oh, yeah, he is. He is in the chat.
Really?
Howdy.
Oh, yeah.
Howdy. So thank Father Nick's for this story, because
this is a heresy, by the way. Just saying.
Father Nick's called me today. Father Nick's called me today to I forgot what he wanted to discuss. I think I texted. What we're doing on locals tonight. We're going to discuss the diocese in Buffalo. So him and I were texting today, talking about how the church, the diocese in Buffalo, is giving a beautiful historic church to Muslims.
Yeah,
selling.
But there were lay Catholics that offered to buy it, and they refused it. So Father Nix and I were just talking today just about how in the first centuries, how the pagan altars were converted to churches, and what's happening now is our church is being converted back into pagan altars. So he called me to talk about that. And when I talked to him about the story of the priest in Steubenville, he said, Anthony, that you have to read the Pius IX story. So he's the one that sent me this article, and he's like, the register actually is pretty fair about this. It's a very, very, good thing. But I couldn't believe how in modern sensibilities, this is such a horrifying thing. But back then, this would have been totally justified, totally normal. And we just had an all-around more Catholic sense of the world. And we are just so Americanized and so liberalized in our modern times that the average person will find this horrifying.
You know how, Anthony, you talk about the kind of unspoken church rule of how converts shouldn't give their opinions until like 5 years into the church. Yeah. I agree with you. Like, that was a mistake that I fell into, because one, I just didn't know about it. But I agree with you. I think whenever you're a convert, you come in, it takes some time to like get into the marinara sauce, if you will, and marinate in Catholicism to bring in your Catholic sensibilities. And
the marinara gravy, right?
Yeah, exactly. But whenever I
He's looking at his phone.
Exactly.
No, I'm sending Father Nick's the link.
He's trying to ignore you too. Yeah. But I agree with you, because whenever I came into the church, it was during the middle of COVID, right? It was in the middle of that entire season. And all the churches were being shut down, as we all know. It didn't really affect me because I wasn't able to receive sacraments at the time. But now, 5 years on, I look and just think about how absolutely off the wall insane that is, because you are literally, for natural reasons, withholding salvation from individuals who need to be saved. And that's why it doesn't surprise me that a diocese would sell a church to Muslims, or these people would be freaking out at the Pope who's like, no, we're keeping this boy because he's baptized, because they're filled with naturalism, which is nothing more than an attitude that just denies the supernatural reality.
Well, doesn't it kind of get into the whole idea of religious freedom, right? So, okay, so this is a tough one, right? Because the idea of religious freedom, like I've heard Kennedy say, this is blasphemy.
The error of religious freedom.
Error of religious freedom is blasphemy, right? But I also think the church in a historical context is in a situation where it's no longer, it wants to exist in a place like America, right? Where America has this freedom of religion, and they don't want forced conversions, but they also want to be able to exist in this new land. So I always had a hard time understanding. Like, I've never delved into the theology of it, and I've heard a lot of people say there are major problems with Vatican II and the whole understanding of religious freedom. But I don't know. I just think in a historical context, what position can the church take when they're dealing with what they're dealing with?
The church tolerates the practice of other religion only because
a greater evil would succumb. If the church was to act like it did in an idealistic world, we would be like 12th century Europe, 13th century Europe. But in a post-liberal world where you have a zillion and one religions, the church says, okay, you state, you America, have to recognize Christ as king in your laws. However, and that says that Catholicism should be the national religion. But let's say the vast majority, like in our country, aren't Catholic. If we were just to impose Catholicism upon the nation and ban every other religion, we would be slaughtered. All of our churches would be burned down. We would not be able to enforce it, etc. And so the church would say, okay, we can tolerate an error so that a greater error doesn't happen to us. That's vastly different than saying you have a civil right, which is what the council says, a civil right to follow a religion according to your own conscience, which is nuts.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but like Aquinas kind of used the argument where not so much allowing, but not cracking down on something like prostitution. He didn't argue that prostitution should be legal. He just argued that a harsh crackdown on something like that would, like you said, would cause a greater evil than the tolerating of it.
Yeah, that's a good example. Aquinas, he was theorizing, and he took Augustine. Augustine said the same thing. He says, if we were to just ban prostitution, right, in a country where it's kind of newly Catholic, if you will, would not more egregious things take place that might be more and more evil? Some theologians say that's not a good position. Some theologians see it's tolerable. I think there's a point to be made, though, which is like, yeah, if tomorrow Baron Trump became Chad Emperor Catholic of America and said, oh, right, we're going to do 1950s Spain, if you know what I mean, style politics here in the United States, no one would ever enforce that. But if they tried to enforce it, he would be out, and all of us would be out of church building.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There is an aspect also where
so 1000%, so true.
So true, 1000%.
Anthony, you don't get to talk about error when you put sauce on your steak.
Me and Rob were talking.
Wait, you put sauce on your steak?
No, me and Rob were talking in the green room. So, dude,
mad, bro.
Nothing riles people up like bad food takes. I get Peter Luger steak sauce, but I use it for like my potatoes, my broccoli, like my sides when I get steak.
That's fine. That's fine.
But I tweeted out today, I'm like, first you guys tried to convince me like bourbon. Now you're telling me you eat steak without steak sauce. I don't believe that. And people lose their minds.
That's funny.
So Christian says, couldn't the same argument be made for
Nukes.
nuclear weapons? Save more lives than not using. And I would say the difference is the tolerating of the practice of a false religion. That tolerance itself is not inherently evil, whereas the use of nuclear weapons is always and can never be anything but inherently evil.
Yeah, it's just the murder of innocence.
Because basically tolerating is like choosing not to push a button and just be like, all right, we'll see what happens as is. Whereas dropping a nuke, or even let's just say something less than that, telling a lie in order to bring about a good action. Aquinas would say, no, you can't lie, because the instrument by which you're trying to do the said action is evil, and you can never bring about that which is good if you're using an evil instrument.
Yeah, and there's also a level of where God does give us the free will to choose him. Right? Like you can't force conversions.
Oh,
I'm not going to use the word proselytize, because proselytize is just evangelize traditionally. But
we need to
conversions-
switch over to locals here in the next few minutes.
Okay, so all right, so we have to end this stream and start a whole new one. I have to send Father Nick's the other stream link, right?
Oh, is he going to join us?
Send him the other stream.
He said he was going to. So all right, so why don't we do this? We're gonna discuss the paganization of Catholicism by us giving our altars over back to the pagans. We're gonna discuss the Buffalo Diocese. We're like 47 local subscribers away from 500.
Hey, let's go.
And when we hit 500, we get more options in locals. We really need you guys. Come on. You guys are here every episode. You guys love our show. Please join us over on locals. That's where we actually get to speak without using coded language. And we kind of, I tell more personal stories. I get a little more in.
It's going to be a separate stream. So we have
to be a separate stream.
Kill this one and then start that one. So head to the link that I put in the live chat, and for anyone watching this later, I will put the link in the description. So head over there to watch the locals.
Okay, so I have to send this to Father Nick's. Let me see.
And for anyone not subscribed, it's just avoidingbabylon.locals.com.
Now, also, guys, always remember you can go to our merch store, get some of our drip. Ryan Katzer Rivera ringing endorsement. I'm subscribed and it rules. Yeah, guys, come hang with us over there. It's always good to support shows that you like. If you guys like for us to continue doing this, that's how you can help us. It's $5 a month. Come on. And if you get a year, you get $10 off. It works out to like $4
$15
a month.
It's $45 for a year, $5 for a month. I think you can even do a one-time support for if you just want to watch the one show, something like that. But
yeah, come and hang over there. Look, we are boys. We we try to bring you guys different stuff that anybody else is bringing. I think we do a pretty good job of it. So yeah, support us any way you can. Rob, take us out. We're going over to locals. We'll get into some good stuff.